this is the cool thing. Whenever you think of a preference in a program, what you have to think about is a preference is just a variable. That's what it is. Variables are preferences. Again, timeout, a preference. Oh, I just want to make sure that the timeout is whatever. Later on, you can create a little GUI that modifies all those variables. That's what a GUI or an interface for that is. Preferences are just a bunch of variables that contain certain states and preferences, and an interface as a preferences GUI just allow you to modify those variables on the fly, which then you have to be able to save somewhere so that if you restart your program, those settings are saved. And now we're reading from an ini file, for example. And I could just simply leave it set up so that when we have it, settings.ini, general, and then timeout, and then the default is 3000. So at this point, even though I do not have an ini file, even though I will not add that functionality for a while, but at least I have already set up in a way that it tries to read from the ini file this particular location. And if it doesn't find it, it defaults to 3000. So I already have my code set up so that later on when somebody says, okay, let's add the functionality of saving the settings into some sort of ini file, I already have the code already set up here. I will do the same here, the auto click here, and then it would default to false. That's it. Or in this case, default to exit app if you want.
No, I think false is better. Yeah, I mean, that's something I think most of people, they still, when they first start using it, they want to see that. But after a while, it's really annoying because I forget to close it. I have to go back.
Yeah, so it is timeout, and then I say this is time in milliseconds to wait to close or dismiss the dialogue, something like that, right? And again, button to click after timeout, something like that, right? So again, you set up your code, even though you're not doing anything at the moment. Now, for example, for Joe, I might just default to exit app for now, right? So I would just, and actually, just by putting it right there, I just overwrite it. So it defaults to false, but now I'm setting it to exit app manually until I have that GUI, Joe, that you said, like, we just have that. So it's a very simple way to set up your preferences and set yourself up for success later. Because when you say, oh, let me implement the ini file, well, you already have half of the work done. You don't have to wait until the ini file is there to get this going, right?
Cool. Do anybody have any questions about that? Or anything else they're working on?
Let's see. Maybe if not, we have other topics, maybe.
Well, you could just add that GUI, which is a nice little, shouldn't take long to do, right?
I would assume so. All right.
Light topic.
Let's go ahead and try that. So this is the error catcher, right?
Yep.
All right. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to the lib folder. I'm going to create a new GUI. Let's call it preferences.ashk. I'm not going to make it a class. I'm just going to create a little GUI, and later on we will deal with that. So we're going to have the preferences GUI. So that's what I'm getting. Preferences.add. What are we going to have? So the first one is going to be a timeout. So we need an edit field here, probably. Okay. That edit field only accepts numbers. Okay. I just want it to be the default value. I don't have any. Well, I can default to 300 here. Oh, sorry, 3000. And now we're going to have a label for that. So I'm going to have a text. And that is going to be our and I'm going to do something, well, let's keep it simple for now. Let's going to call it time out milliseconds in ms, milliseconds or something, right? So that people know what it is. Then I'm going to duplicate the whole thing because I want the label and the next part. So this one is going to be our auto click button. And then we're going to choose from a drop down list of a range of buttons. So our buttons are going to be at this point, we have them out here. Now, here's the question. This is where it becomes a little bit tricky, okay? So this one, I don't like the ampersand being shown to the user, all right? But I need the ampersand to send that. Or I want to have other things. But what I can do is just create a map.
Right.
So what I'm going to do for that map, as this map is only related to the preferences grid, this is the only one that is going to do it. I'm going to have the map in here. So I'm going to have preferences. What are those? Buttons. And I'm going to create a map here that has the three things that I wanted. Okay. And in here, I'm going to have the exact same thing, but and the beginning here is going to be without the ampersands. So my map here, what it's doing is it's just making me not have the issue of thinking about, oh, I'm going to show reload, but what is it later on? So I'm just going to, I don't have to have if statements or switch statements. It's just a map. Now, I want these three things in an array because this here takes an array. What I'm going to say is just for, so I would say headers for button in preferences.buttons, right? I'm going to have headers equals is an array, and then I'm going to say headers.push button. So this is going to loop through the map and grab each of these individual names and push them into the headers array, just this part, not the ampersand. And that's the one that I'm going to show you here in the headers. So I'm going to say headers. That's it. So that should give me a drop-down list. And now we need a button to say OK. OK, so button. I usually go with a very specific width. And I say save or OK. And that button, when I click on it, is going to do certain things. So what I say is that I'm going to, on event click, I'm going to call a given function, let's say save settings or something like that, okay? So that save settings function goes here. I don't care about anything at the moment. And I'm going to later on have a hotkey to show the preferences or something else. At this point, as I'm testing, I'm going to show the GUI right away when we start, and I'm going to test. And the save settings, let's just say message box for now, just to test everything out. And if I run the script now, so let me end. You will see me having to go back to the error capture to run it. And that drives me nuts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a little launch JSON file here so that I don't have to do that. I'm just going to tell it, you know what, whenever I press F5, you're going to run this file. It doesn't matter where I am. I just do that. Every time I press F5, just go ahead and run that. And I'm going to name it, instead of AutoHotkey debug advanced configuration, because it makes no sense. That name, I don't know if you can see it. Give me just a second. Down here, it shows up down here. I'm going to change that name to something more meaningful of error capture or run error capture. And you will see that at the bottom here, now that name just changed to that. So that makes sense. So I can run it by clicking down here, or I can run it by pressing F5, and it should pick that one and not any other. So now I'm going to close that. And that means that whenever I press F5, it will run the script and try to run whatever we are. Now, I don't think I have included the preferences GUI yet. So let's go ahead and include that. Include lib, and then GUI, and then preferences. There we go. Now we see the GUI. Now notice how, first of all, the text is too small. Second of all, the sizes do not match. So let's make sure that those match. And at that point, I'm going to make sure that everything has the same size. All right. So let's do that. Preferences, I'll have a default GUI. So preferences.setFont. I'm going to make the font a little bit bigger. And then I'm going to make sure to have a whole width. So basic width. It's going to be, I don't know, 300. And every single one of these preferences, they will all have 300 in their width. And then I'm going to have the basic width for all of them. So I'm going to make sure that that's the case. So everything is now kind of like lined up a little bit better, and I have a little bit more space. All right. So now that I have that, look at that. We can have it default to none, or we can have it default to one of the actions. Let's have it default to exit out. How about that? So what we're going to do now is choose. I think you can do that. Let me check on that. Yeah, you see that. So it defaults to one of them. You can either put a number there, number 2, number 1, number 3, or you can put part of the text that you want to match, and it should actually choose it by default if you want it. And I want to make sure that I have the option of none as well. So that's it. Now, when I hit save, what do I want to do? Well, there are only 2 settings. That's the timeout, and that's the thing. And I already have where I'm saving that. So what I'm going to do at this point is do exactly the same, but the opposite. So I'm going to go ahead and say ini write. So ini write in, and then I have to put the value first. So the value is going to be whatever is on my GUI at the moment. So to get the values, now I need variables. So for this timeout thing, let's have a variable called timeout. And for this drop-down list, we're going to have a close button. Okay. Now that means that in here, I now can refer to the preferences GUI, and I'm going to have the preferences timeout. And at this point, when I'm referencing them, I don't have to put the V in there. And here I will do the same, but you have to be careful with this one. The close button is a drop-down list. The value is a number. It would be 1, 2, 3, 4, but I probably want to save the text and not the value. That way, when I look at my settings, it's going to have the word in there, right? So that's 1. And at this point, this is my settings. This is my key. This is my value. I don't need the last parameter, I think is what happens. That's it. So now I have everything so that when I hit OK, it saves everything into the file, and then preferences.hide can hide the preferences when I hit OK. And probably have a notify saying saved correctly. But now that means, here's the part. On the original part, we were just reading this at the beginning of the script only once. I don't want to do that. I want to read this every time I need it. So I would go to the function, which is the error assist function, right? Where I need them, right here. And I will put them inside this function. And I will not make them static. I will make them something that happens every time you call that function, so that we can always get the latest value. So if I change the settings now, it should read whatever is there now. All right. There we go. And we will see if that works. So that's it. We have our timeout being red, our auto click being red. And now I think we're done. I think that's it. The only thing that I need is a way to show that preference is GUI. Right now I have it shown automatically, but I could have either a hotkey like Control F12.
Yeah, or
Sorry?
just a system tray.
Right. Or the system tray. So let's do that. So what we're going to do is go to the main part of the script. I usually do that in here. We have a tray menu here. And one of the things that should be about here, probably at below that, would be preferences. And then that should call the preferences. Oh, well, I'm going to run preferences.show. That's it. So now when I reload, I should be able to have a preferences button here that brings this up. Let's say that the timeout, I'm going to make it 100 and the click button would be exit for now. We save that and you will see that a settings file was just generated with my last thing. Now there's something that is going to break, which is that when we go back here, I read the auto click, but that is not the correct name of the button that I want to click. So this, I could now load it into a temporary variable. So auto click, right? And then I say switch, or no, sorry, I have a map that does that for me. So I don't have to do that. I can just look at the map. So preferences, buttons, and in that, I'm going to pass the value that I just read, and it should return the correct button name for that. So this is actually a button name, really. So right now, I'm going to stop right here to verify that that is correct. So if I open something here and run it, it stops, and this auto click has the correct button name because I read the value from the ini file, and that value that I read, I'm gonna try to find it in the buttons
Map. Yeah.
map, and that will return back the button that I want. Now there's another problem. What if it is false? Well, if it is false, that map doesn't have false in it. So I have to make sure to account for that. So I will only do this if I have a value. So let's say I get a value, because sometimes it could be false. So if I have a value, let's rename that button. If not, then auto click should be false. Does that make sense? That's what I'm going to be saying right here. And at this point, let me see. I could start with this always being false, and then I could just try that.
If it has something. Yeah, gotcha.
Right. And the point here is I'm trying to get rid of the if statement because of what we were talking about yesterday. There's a lot of ways in which you can avoid if statements. Right now, I just written it as an if statement, look at it, and then refactor it without having the trace statement. So it defaults to false. And if I try to read something in here and I don't find that, it will still be false. Now, sorry, and the point here being that I have to get the map here. So preferences.buttons, right? So yeah, what is that?
It's just a typo. I just happen to notice it.
Oh, okay. So basically, I will try to get something. If it is false, the buttons map doesn't have that, and it's going to fail. It would throw an error. And because of that, I'm catching the try. So if there was an error, the auto-click variable is going to stay as it was before, which was false. So it defaults to false anyways. So this will do the same thing without the thing. Now, let's run it. It is running. Let's go ahead and set our preferences. Let's say that in our preferences, we said that we have the 3000 Let's say that we lower it to 300, exit app, save. Now, in here, if I run it, I get it and it exits the app. Very cool. Now, if I go ahead and change my preferences now to 3000 and actually, let's say, reload, let's see if that, I just changed the thing. I didn't have to restart my script. When I do it, I'm expecting those things to happen now like that. Let's see. Yeah, you see, you saw the reload, right?
Yeah.
So it actually clicked the reload. It's actually tried. Now it entered a loop because every time it reloads, then it falls into an error again. So it keeps doing that. So we probably don't want to have the reload option, I guess.
Well, if there's a hotkey, the people might want it reloaded. But again, we might as well have them there, right? And I think
right.
we should add abort as well.
The last thing that is missing here is when I'm showing the preferences, is always defaulting to something, right? And what we could do is that when we show the stuff, so that is in the hotkey that says preferences show, let's call it load preferences, right? Because if so let's create that load preferences, and I want to first read my values into the GUI. So preferences, what was the first one? I forgot. Hold on.
I want to say exit app, but I don't.
No, what I meant is timeout and close button. So these two guys, I want to set whatever I had in there before. So this is the ini read that we had before, right? I think we have the ini read somewhere anyways. Oh yeah, in the error assist.
Gotcha.
So I want to read them before showing the GUI because that they might have changed, right? So this is one, and this is the other. I'm gonna copy those, go back here, and then say, hey, the timeout, I'm gonna read it into the value of this thing, and this one is gonna be the text of this thing. That's basically what and that means every time I show my preferences, I'm gonna show the latest version of your settings if you have changed it, because I noticed that when I opened it, kind of like reset everything. So right now it's at 3000 reload, let's say 300 exit, save. But if I open it again, I'm expecting those 300 and exit out. And if I reload my program, I want to see those again. Oh, no, not that. I want to see the preferences that I have saved, 300 and exit app. So that's how you do it. So again, there's a lot of moving parts in this, but the reason how I know about all those moving parts is that I have actually fell into these issues over and over again. Once you start getting in the hang of it, it becomes something second nature, right? Because you have done it so many times that now you know where to go and look for those kind of issues. For me, it is a little bit easier just because I have fell into this same problem several times. But I guess that's the cool thing about these calls is that you can ask any questions. We can go back again. You can test it on your apps. And yeah, we're here to help.
All right, everyone. Hope you enjoyed that. That was a whirlwind, but still very cool stuff in that script. I'm telling you, if you're using AI, it saves a lot of time.
Right, definitely.
Thanks so much.
See you soon.
You're welcome. Bye, guys.